You're never going to have a shortage of people making insane gains in illiquid things that eventually go to zero. You're never going to have a shortage of that. And you're never going to have a shortage of people buying stupid things. So, what does Dogecoin do? Nothing good. It's a JPEG, basically. It's a bad network with low features that has a JPEG as its claim to fame. I'm not really into the JPEG claim to fame stuff. I don't really like it. Now, have a lot of people made money on it? Yes. Have a lot of people lost money on it? Yes. I feel more wholesome and joyous when there's unique utility behind the thing. So let's talk about, now look, will I probably eventually have some JPEG thing? Yes, probably. Why? Because why not? I could make a better JPEG thing than other people, but I'm still going to tell you I hate it. So I'll make a better JPEG thing than other people, but I'm still going to tell you I hate it. Honesty is what I do. So PulseChain has higher throughput, better security, lower environmental impact to the point of nearly none, is a newer coin with more features, is faster than Bitcoin, but Bitcoin has an $800 billion market cap. PulseChain doesn't. Why? Well, we're new. We're on the way, right? Things will get better, in my opinion. So and for you listening, is that a forward-looking price statement? Nope, not a forward-looking price statement, not financial advice. Why do I say these things? Because there's people that want to screw me up. There's people that want to do harm to me. There's people that want to do harm to you as well. I'm going to tell you more about all that in a moment. So we've got a wonderful network. We've got wonderful features. We've got wonderful airdrop. There's, you can do lending on the PulseChain network. There's projects that let you borrow coins. There's projects that there's stable coins on PulseChain. There's all types of stuff people have launched on PulseChain. I don't know that much about it. You can look into it. People are building new things on the network and launching them. It's cool. I'd love to see fiat on-ramps. I'd love it. One cool thing I saw this community do is that they made a bot, or several bots, I think several teams built bots, that send you free Pulse if you bridge into the network. So it used to be if you bridge into the network, you also had to bridge over some Pulse. So you had to perform a swap and then do an extra bridge to bridge the Pulse over to get native Pulse to transact. Or you could try and get it through a side channel, through an exchange or something, or through a friend. And that would be so basically if you're doing it without the exchange or without the friend, then you would have to do an extra swap and an extra send, which on Ethereum is very expensive, a bridge is $12 maybe. And a swap is $20. It's a $32 penalty just to get native PLS. That sucks. And so what people did was they just built bots that send you free PLS if you'd bridged in and you don't already have PLS. Which is awesome because now you save them a swap and you save them figuring out which token to swap to, because of course in gatekeeping land, typing WPLS doesn't get you the darn token because gatekeeping scum trash everywhere. Crazy. So yeah, that's awesome. And it's very cheap to do, right? Because it costs less than a penny to send many, 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 many times native Pulse to somebody. You'd send 1,000 times and it wouldn't even cost you a penny. That's awesome. That's very, very cool. So I'm glad the community built those things. I think that's going to make it a lot easier for people to use the bridge if they want. A lot more affordable, a lot quicker. Okay, so we've covered client top of the day, slippage, liquidity, free PRC20s. Yes, if you have any token on Ethereum. Oh, by the way, that counts for NFTs too, right? So you bought an NFT on Ethereum. There's a copy of it here on PulseChain. Same code, copy. Now, did you sell it to somebody and then not sell them the PulseChain version? Interesting. So guys that sold their NFTs on Ethereum still have their PulseChain versions. That's interesting, right? I haven't seen a market for these things. And I think markets for JPEGs are probably very important to the JPEG holders. So I think you may see more. If someone makes a market for the PRC, for the PulseChain versions of NFTs, I think you'd see it take off because these guys are wrecked. They're wrecked and they wouldn't mind the free money. So if you want to give these guys some free money, they probably wouldn't mind it. And having a market for them to dump into, I'm sure they'd love. And then eventually, I wouldn't mind seeing PRC20, ERC20 copies. Because, look, in theory, if people dumped enough of their free PRC20s to, create a base, then if someone created a PRC20, if someone created a PRC20 copy with bridged in ERC20, which we call ERC20, right? Like EETH or, E-Wrap Bitcoin or whatever, it might create that thing that was dreamt of the less liquid, more volatile, but yet because they're bridged, still tied to the ERC20 price kind of thing. And now it's been 7 months? 7 months is probably a good enough while to see those guys shaken out. So it would be interesting to see experiments with people bridging in some ERC20 to pair it with PRC20 to see whether the PRC20 market kind of follows and tracks with the ERC20 market, which obviously someone somewhere would have to run a bot if they wanted to profit on that arbitrage opportunity. Or if there's nobody running bots, then the two markets would just kind of exist in parallel, I guess. Because they're not directly related, right? Like the only side channel people running bots would relate those two things together, I think. Well, actually they are directly related if they're in a AMM, but the AMM doesn't know the state of the other system, so they're not really directly related. So let me rephrase that. The bridged in ERC20 is directly related to the free PRC20 if they're both in an AMM pair, but that AMM pair's kind of quote price of the bridged in ERC20 isn't directly related to anything because it doesn't know what's going on the AMM or markets on the Ethereum chain. It doesn't know that stuff. So it would be an interesting experiment. I think someone should do it. It'd be cool. So things I look forward to. Fiat on-ramps. Someone could open bridges to other stuff. I think somebody opened a bridge to BSC, but I don't think it does any volume. But maybe nobody knows about it. That's the thing is I'm so afraid to talk about anything without reading the audits and making sure people aren't going to get wrecked, right? I hate it when people get wrecked. So you rarely ever hear me talk about things that I don't really believe in. What else? That market where you could have the less liquid leverage position, especially after 7 months of shakeout, I think it's less risky to get just infinite dumped on by ERC20 holders. Because you saw the Pepe guys just infinite dump. You saw Aave infinite dump on the PRC20 side. I can't remember what other coins those communities were just told about, and they were infinite dump. You're well, yeah, but now you guys are paying $30 a swap, $20 a swap, $50 a swap, depending on the rates. If you had just moved your liquidity and your community to the superior network, you'd be paying basically nothing to swap and nothing to send, and you wouldn't be paying a huge tax to on-ramp new users. If it costs $50 to swap, you're paying a $50 on-ramp tax for every new user. That sucks. That sucks a lot. That's not good. It's just when Bitcoin was $40 to send. I tried to explain this to people, but some dum-dums didn't get it. If it costs $40 to send Bitcoin forevermore, which I don't think it will, but let's say it did, then if someone sent you $40 of Bitcoin, you really have zero, because it would cost you $40 to send it to the next guy or to the exchange or to the merchant or to do anything with it. It would cost you $40. Even if you sold your private key, which no one ever does usually because you can't prove that you deleted your copy of it. So the next guy has risk, which is why blockchain ledgers with timestamping prevents double spending, et cetera, et cetera. If it costs $40 to send Bitcoin, that means it costs you $80 to send 40, and then the guy receives it really has nothing because it would cost him to send 40 to try and use it. So you just turn 80 into zero. So if it costs $40 to use Bitcoin, it means if you spend 80, you have zero. Because it cost you 80 to buy 80, but then you only received 40 because the exchange is going to charge you to receive the 40. And then it's going to cost you 40 to send. And so that guy receives actually zero. I mean, actually, including, so it may be worse than I had originally explained it. It may cost $120 to turn into zero. So let's do the math real quick. You send $120 to the exchange. Exchanging's stupid. They don't want to lose money on you. So they're going to charge you 40 to send because it costs them 40 to send. So you buy 120 from your exchange. You pay them 40 to send it to you. Now you've got 80 left. You send 40 to your friend. It costs you 40. So now your balance is zero. And your friend received 40, but it's worth zero because you can't use it without spending 40. So now you've actually turned 120 into zero. Before, in my previous example that people argued about, the argument was that you got 80 to zero. But in actuality, if the exchange ain't stupid and they don't lose money sending you the coins, it's really turning 120 into zero. So now you've got $120 minimum tax to on-ramp someone if they're ever going to send coins to a friend. It's untenable and stupid and not why cryptocurrency was invented. It's not supposed to be worse than the legacy system. Like this. Yeah, it's, I think that PulseChain's basically free to send so far model is pretty cool. So let's check the gas prices again. $9 to send Bitcoin, $8.49, $1.20 to send ETH, 0.0002 to send PLS. That's 50,000 times cheaper than Bitcoin, 7,500 times cheaper than Ethereum. Guys, the network is good. Works great. Oh, and the bridge is free too. Somebody set the bridge to zero fee so that using the bridge has no fee, both directions. So if you go to bridge.pulsechain.com, there's no fees currently. In, out, either way, no fees. Now you're going to pay a fee on the Ethereum network. Nothing you can do about that. That's Ethereum's side, right? So you got a great network and you got a ton of free coins and it's been worked flawlessly for 7 months. Go make it great, guys. Launch stuff on it, use it, build fiat on-ramps, make a money transmitter in your state, make a licensed money transmitter in your state, and you can, make the community better. So legal stuff. Let's talk about legal stuff. In the United States, you have something called the Constitution. The Constitution restricts the government. The Constitution's job is to restrict the government and to protect your rights. You have something called the Bill of Rights, which were amendments to the Constitution to really, really super give you a good deal and restrict the government could do because governments have such a history of screwing people over and over and over and over again throughout history. So what are some things in the Constitution? And these are very important things to know. And these things are so important to know that federal officers, such as Gary Gensler, the chairman of the SEC, you can go on the internet and you can search Gary Gensler's confirmation hearing, and you're going to see him swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America to defend it against enemies, both foreign and domestic. Now, you might ask yourself, what is a domestic enemy? What is a domestic enemy of the Constitution? I wonder. So the Constitution has something called the First Amendment. The First Amendment is freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Government shall make no law against free talking and all that stuff, right? Well, it turns out that Gary Gensler and the Securities Exchange Commission is actually doing a lot in violation of their oath. It turns out that they're violating a lot of what the Constitution is supposed to be protected from. So the Constitution says you have a right to freedom of movement, a right to freedom of association, a right to freedom of speech. There's other legal doctrines like the right to contract, which, if you interfere with other people's contracts as tortious interference, and you can get sued for it. It can cost you money. You have a whole bunch of rights in there, right? And then there's things that are like even harsher violations. So if you're going to violate people's free speech, one of the worst ways to do that is with something called prior restraint, where you don't even give them the chance to speak. Well, listen to this. Blockchain networks are communication networks. They carry speech. The first Bitcoin block carried a copy of a newspaper article. blockchain networks are speech. And the software that consists of blockchain networks, the nodes, the wallets, those are just word processing assistants. They just help you format your speech in a way that other participants can understand. So when you try and interfere with the blockchain, you're interfering with communication. You're interfering with communications network. You are performing prior restraint. Your interference in these things is creating a chilling effect. You are interfering with people's association. You are interfering with people's right to contract with each other. You're interfering with specific contracts. You are doing numerous, multiple things in violation of your oath to protect the Constitution. You're doing it outside of congressional authority. You're doing it outside of your mandate. So I don't understand how America became the carceral state. America has the highest rate of incarceration of any nation that's ever existed in the history of mankind. And yet you see very few lawsuits against people in the government. It just doesn't seem to match up to me. If you have extremely high rates of the government putting people in prison, shouldn't you have also high rates of some of the people being put in prison kind of suing the government for violating their rights? I mean, you go around the world and you can't even in some countries get 20 years for murder, but in the United States, they hand out time like it's candy. You can get 20 years very easily for doing lots of different things. Very easy to get 20 years in the United States. Very hard to get 20 years anywhere else. Isn't that cruel and unusual? By the way, Bill of Rights has a rule against cruel and unusual punishment. Shouldn't there be more lawsuits over this? Isn't it cruel and unusual that for things that aren't murder, you're getting what the entire rest of the world considers to be murder punishments? And I think even in the United States, you see crimes that just, you're going to get punished harder for nonviolent crimes and violent crimes in a lot of instances. Doesn't make any sense. Or like meta crime that doesn't even have a victim. These things are like, they're not healthy. They're not good. And it's how you end up with the highest rate of incarceration in the history of mankind. So do you really have the rights you're not willing to fight for? Probably not. So you got to fight for these rights. And it's just tragic because so few people have the funding or the ability to stand up to the blowback to fight for your rights. I mean, when